Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I'm going to be going over the MLB slate on DraftKings for Friday, April 20th. We have 15 games today, a full slate on the main slate for Friday. So I don't want to waste any time. We got a lot of pitching options to look at, to talk about. Of course, there's going to be plenty of stacks we want to go to as well, plenty of hitters to talk about. Just before we do get started, make sure you guys drop a like on the video. I would really appreciate it. And if you are new to the channel and you haven't subscribed yet, make sure you click that subscribe button down below, so that way you won't miss out on any of my new videos. But yeah, looking at pitcher today, just looking at the studs, guys over $10,000. We have Noah Syndergaard, Justin Verlander, and Max Scherzer. Scherzer gets to face the Dodgers. Verlander has a great matchup with the White Sox, and Noah Syndergaard gets a matchup with the Braves. If we're just talking about these three pitchers and who to pay up for, like for cash games, you always want to pay up for a pitcher in cash games, in my opinion. Scherzer against the Dodgers, I don't like that matchup. The Dodgers, they do have a pretty good lineup, kind of from top to bottom. Not a ton of strikeouts in their lineup either. But it is Max Scherzer. We obviously know Scherzer can strike anybody out. You could go to him at $12,500, but I think I do feel better with going to Justin Verlander in this matchup with the White Sox. I just feel like there are more strikeouts for Verlander to get here than for Scherzer. I think Scherzer might be the better strikeout pitcher, but Verlander has just such a good matchup. This White Sox team has strikeouts in their lineup, kind of from top to bottom. If we just look sort of from top to bottom, Garcia, Matt Davidson, Wellington Castillo, Tim Anderson, Engel, these guys all have very high K rates, and even guys like Abreu, Moncada will still strike out as well. We know Justin Verlander, he's going to pitch deep into games, pretty much throws at least 100 pitches just about every game. And with James Shields on the opposing mound for the White Sox, he's pretty likely to get roughed up here. So Verlander should have run support, should be able to get a win as well and get those 4 extra DraftKings points. I think Verlander could easily go 7-8 innings here, get a win, 9-10 strikeouts, definitely possible. Could throw a shutout, would not be surprised. So I just really like him here. I don't really like Noah Syndergaard at $11,400. That matchup with the Braves, not a matchup I really like. The Braves don't strike out a lot. They put the ball in play, they make contact. I would much rather just go up to Verlander or go up to Scherzer. With Syndergaard's price, maybe if he was cheaper, I'd have interest in him, but at 11.4, I just, like I said, rather play Verlander and Syndergaard, or Verlander and Scherzer, excuse me. But then looking at SP2s, we do have like a lot of sort of cheaper options, like mid-tier plays like Rich Hill, Trevor Bauer, Chris Archer, Junis, Bundy, and then going down, you got some cheap options you can consider. But just looking at an SP2 that I compare with Verlander, it might not be like the best price or best price to paying this much for an SP2 when you're already playing Verlander. But I do like Chris Archer here at $8,800. Pairing him with Verlander leaves you $3,650 remaining per player, and I think you can definitely work around that today, especially with it being a 15-game slate. You're going to have some value. You're going to have some value stacks you most likely will want to go to. So it should be pretty easy to play Verlander and Archer. I will be looking to do that today. I like this spot for Chris Archer. I like his price tag at $8,800. I feel like that's too cheap for Archer, especially when he's playing at home against a Minnesota team that does have strikeouts in their lineup. If we look at their projected lineup, their implied run total only implied to score 3.7 runs today. There are strikeouts in this lineup with Sano, Logan Morrison, Robbie Grossman, Castro, just guys that will strike out. Dozier versus a righty will definitely strike out. Chris Archer has great PVB versus this team. He's done really well against the Twins. The Twins are only hitting a 238 average versus, or 175 average versus him. They're 17 for 97 off of Archer. And through those 97 at-bats, Chris Archer has 34 strikeouts. So he's got about a 30% K rate, a little bit more than that, versus the Twins through 3 games. So I think this is just such a good spot for Chris Archer. I think his price tag is very nice. He's playing at home in Tampa Bay, a great pitcher's park. I just think Archer, $8,800, really too cheap for this matchup. So these are kind of the two pitchers I'm looking at today, Verlander and Archer, at least that I compare together. But if we do want to talk about some of the other pitchers available on the slate, there isn't a lot I love that's in Archer's price range, like Rich Hill against Washington, I'm not very interested in. Trevor Bauer against Baltimore, maybe you could go to, but Baltimore's been swinging the bat really well lately. Machado's been on fire lately. I believe he's homered like 4 times the last 2 games, 3 times the last 2 games. And Archer is cheaper, and I do prefer Archer. And then like Junis against Detroit, I guess you could go to. That is a solid matchup, but like I said, with him being priced similar to Archer, I think I'd rather just play Archer at $8,800. But if we do want to look for like the value pitchers and go cheap, I think Drew Pomeranz against Oakland could definitely be sort of a value play here at 7,500. If you wanted to go to him. Doesn't look like he's going to have that big of a pitch count. Right here it says Pomeranz will be on a pitch count between 100 to 105 pitches, so they're going to let him pretty much have a full workload here. And it's definitely a good matchup against Oakland. A matchup where Pomeranz can get strikeouts. Oakland will strike out. The game's going to be played in Oakland, which is a good pitcher's park, a good park to pitch in. So Pomeranz is 7,500, kind of a value option you could go to if you did want to go that cheap. And I think that's really it for like the value at pitcher. If we're talking about really cheap options, mainly I'm looking obviously to the top with Scherzer and Verlander, but then like the options you can pair. I think Archer could be a good play here as an SP2. Jake Junis, 8,300, I think is a good SP2 option, and Pomeranz, 7,500 you could go to as well. Maybe Sonny Gray against Toronto is 7,700, but I think I would rather play Pomeranz at 7,500. But you could also consider Gray here with his price tag. But that's really it for pitcher. For the pitching options I'm looking to go to today. So now let's talk about some hitters that we want to target on the slate. 3 hitters I like. Definitely going to need some value here since we went really expensive at pitcher. We're going to need some value bats, and I think there are some that we can go to. If we look to third base today, there is a play that I really like here, a cheap option under 4K, 3,800. I think Travis Shaw, too cheap today for this matchup with Trevor Richards. This is a great matchup, great ballpark to hit in Miller Park. The Brewers have a pretty high implied run total on this slate, one of the highest right now at 5.1 runs. Trevor Richards, not that good of a pitcher. He's going to be pitching in a good ballpark for hitters, a good hitter's park. And you definitely got some good plays in this lineup with Kane, Yelich, Braun. Obviously, those guys are solid plays. Thames projected about 5th, 4.9K. But Travis Shaw in the cleanup spot, only 3.8K, just really sticks out to me here. We know he hits righties well, hits righties better than he does lefties. He hasn't been off to that great of a start year. Maybe that's one of the reasons he's so cheap. Only hitting a 260 average this year, or so far. Only has 2 home runs. But I think Shaw pretty likely to get things going here against Trevor Richards. Possibly he hits a home run against him. I like him for a value play at third base if you're looking to go cheap at that position. And then my final 2 plays, both going to come from the outfield. At 4,100, absolutely love Josh Reddick today. Love the Astros as a stack. They're going to be a team you want to stack here against James Shields. James Shields is not a good pitcher. We're going to be targeting him all year as long as he's starting. In this matchup with the Astros, this is such a good spot for them to just rough up James Shields. There's good plays up and down this lineup. Springer, Altuve, Correa are all good plays today in my opinion. They're going to be expensive. It's going to be hard to fit them in if you want to pay up a pitcher, but maybe you go cheaper. Maybe you play like Archer and Bauer today, or Archer and Pomeranz. That does allow you to fit in some of these guys. But you do have value here as well with like Bregman, 4.2, Reddick, 4.1, Gurriel, even cheap catcher options like Gaddis, McCann. Derek Fisher at the bottom of that lineup, nobody's going to play because he's batting 9th, but Derek Fisher versus James Shields could definitely be a play as well. He's only 3K. As I'm recording this Thursday night at about 11 o'clock Eastern Time, we don't have any news or we don't have any implied run totals or any Vegas information. But I would say the Astros are going to have at least a 5 to 5.5, somewhere in that range, implied run total today. Definitely a team you want to stack up. A lot of good plays in that lineup, and I love Josh Reddick here, 4,100. I think he has solid BVP against James Shields if I look at it quick. He's 8 for 25 with 3 home runs, 320 average. So Reddick's hit him well in the past. Makes sense because James Shields just not a good pitcher. Struggles to lefties, gives up home runs. Love Josh Reddick, love the Astros here as a stack. And then my final play, going to be a really cheap option. Getting some exposure to the Coors Field game. I like Gerardo Parra today at 3,200. If he is in the lineup versus Kyle Hendricks. Parra did get suspended along with Arenado and I think a couple of other guys. But he's in the projected lineup, at least on Fantasy Labs. So is Arenado. Cargo's in there as well. So these guys should be back for this game versus the Cubs. And obviously you're going to want to get some exposure to the Coors Field game. Coors Field, most of their games are pretty high scoring. They're always going to have high implied run totals. They're always going to get a lot of love from Vegas. Right now the Rockies have a 5.4 implied run total and the Cubs have a 5.2. With John Gray and Kyle Hendricks on the mound, both of those guys are solid pitchers, but still both teams have over a 5 implied run totals. So runs are going to be scored here. You definitely want exposure to both sides. You can find some value here. Obviously, guys get priced up when they go to Coors, but you still got cheap options with Parra 3.2K. Tony Walters, if you just want a punt catcher, I do like him at 2.5. Then if we look on the other side, you got some value towards the bottom of the lineup with Addison Russell at 3.9K, Jason Hayward only 3K. The guys like Hap, Bryant, Rizzo, these are definitely guys you're going to want to get into some lineups today, but just looking for the value, that's where I think Gerardo Parra comes in, just because I feel like he's too cheap versus a righty. We know Parra going to be better versus righties, just gets the splits advantage. So I like him here, 3,200, good value from the Coors Field game. And if you're looking for a cheap outfielder today, I think he makes a lot of sense. But yeah, guys, these are my 5 plays for today. Justin Verlander, Chris Archer, Travis Shaw, Josh Reddick, and Gerardo Parra. Now, if we want to look at some stacks to go to today, some of the high implied run totals on this slate. Minus Coors, obviously, you want to get exposure to that game, but I'm going to kind of take that game out. The Astros are for sure my number 1 stack on this slate. Love their lineup top to bottom. I think anybody that's in this lineup is in play. And then my next favorite stack would most likely be the Brewers versus Trevor Richards. I don't think Trevor Richards is that good of a pitcher. Really like a lot of the Brewers here. The lefties I think are in play. Even the righties you could go to as well. So mainly the Brewers, the Astros, obviously Coors Field. You want to get some exposure to that game. If we're looking at like sneaky stacks, some teams that have somewhat low implied total but could still put up runs, there isn't a lot I love on this slate. A lot that I really want to go to. Maybe targeting some of these Red Sox versus Kendall Graveman, but these guys aren't very cheap. You're gonna have to pay for these guys. Maybe someone like Benintendi you could go to at 4.4. Maybe like Rafael Devers 4K you could go to versus Graveman. I could see the Red Sox putting up some runs here, but they're definitely not like my number 1 stack today. Number 1 for sure is the Astros versus James Shields. But yeah, I think that's really it for stacks and implied run totals on this slate. Now, if we want to look at BVP, some of the top BVP plays on this slate, some batters that have done really well versus the pitchers they are facing for today. At least with a decent sample, Didi Gregorius, a big one here that stands out to me just because 38 at bats. He's 9 for 38 versus Marco Estrada with 3 home runs. Jose Abreu has hit Justin Verlander really well. 14 for 35 with 5 home runs, so 400 average. If you don't play Verlander today, you want to get a little frisky in some tournaments. Nobody's going to play Abreu today, but he has great BVP versus Verlander. Definitely can gain some leverage on the people that play Verlander here. Say Jose Abreu somehow hits a home run versus him. You could play him. Josh Reddick, like I said earlier, 8 for 25 with 3 home runs versus James Shields. Joey Votto's 13 for 34 versus Michael Wacha with a home run, a 382 average there. Cargo's 5 for 17 versus Kyle Hendricks with a home run. Looking at like the top BVP plays with a sample size, maybe if we look at some with like more home runs, Manny Machado 8 for 12 with 3 home runs versus Trevor Bauer. That's a really good play. Machado's hit Bauer very, very well. Gary Sanchez 4 for 19 versus Estrada, but all 4 of his hits were home runs. So he's shown a lot of power versus Estrada. Kind of the same with Giancarlo Stanton, only 5 for 14, but 3 of those 5 hits were home runs. And then I guess the last one, Albert Pujols is 7 for 19 versus Jeff Samardzija with 3 home runs, 368 average there. That's really it for BVP. Now if we want to look at pitchers that have done really well in their matchups for today that are on the main slate, Sonny Gray done really well against the Blue Jays. The Blue Jays have struggled to hit Sonny Gray, only hitting him for a 217 average, 18 for 83. And of those 83 at-bats, the Blue Jays have struck out 28 times. I mentioned Chris Archer earlier. The Twins have really struggled to hit him, just 17 for 97. He struck out 34 Twins and 97 at-bats. Love Archer today as an SP2, SP1 option. Just think he's a great play all around. To no surprise, the Dodgers have really struggled to hit Max Scherzer. The Dodgers only hitting a 153 average versus Scherzer, 13 for 85 with a home run. And then it looks like Clayton Kershaw is actually expected to pitch today versus the Nationals. I believe Rich Hill was listed in the player pool. So Rich Hill's not even pitching today. It's going to be Kershaw versus the Nationals. Let's see what Kershaw's price is. I didn't even look at him. He's 12-2 versus the Nats. I think I'll shy away from Kershaw today. I think I still would prefer Verlander. But dang, I didn't even know that. I didn't even know Kershaw was pitching. I kind of just saw Rich Hill in the player pool and thought he was going. But it's going to be Kershaw pitching against the Nationals today. But I still think I'd prefer Verlander over him. I still think I would actually prefer Max Scherzer over Kershaw today. But I didn't mention him at the beginning. But just saw Kershaw's in the PVB section. He has done well against the Nationals. The Nationals have only hit Kershaw for a 263 average, 26 for 99. And then pitchers that have done poorly, teams that have hit really well versus the pitcher they're going up against. The Yankees have hit Marco Estrada really well. 240, only a 242 average, but a lot of home runs, 18 home runs versus Estrada. And then the Cardinals have hit Brendan Finnegan really well, 20 for 63, a 317 average. But yeah, guys, that's really it for BVP and PVB on this slate, and I think that is really it for this video. Hopefully you guys did enjoy the video. Big 15-game slate tonight. Definitely a lot to dive into later on in the day. Really like this slate. I think there are a lot of good pitching options to go to. A lot of good stacks to target. Astros, getting some course field exposure. Definitely some bats that you can target on this slate. I think there are good expensive bats that you could pay up for. So like if you want to go cheap at pitcher, you could do that. I think there's value bats. So if you wanted to pay up at pitcher, go for the value bats. You could go that route as well. Just one of those fun slates where you kind of got a lot of ways to go and a lot of options to choose from. But yeah, guys, that's really it. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Hopefully it helped you. Make sure you drop a like if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you have not already. Make sure you click that subscribe button down below before you do get out of here. And if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up on Twitter at the DFS_GOAT, or you can just leave a comment down below, and I will get back to you as soon as I can. But yeah, guys, I think that's pretty much it. Thank you so much for watching. Really appreciate it, and good luck tonight on this slate. Peace.